one by one. The bus was late. It was due at 9:28 a.m. and it was now 9:35 a.m. Helen started to panic. She was going to be late for her appointment. She hated not arriving on time. It made her anxiety worse. Straining her neck to see if the bus was approaching, she started to feel breathless and unable to breathe. Reaching into her large shoulder bag for her inhaler, her fingers brushed against the device. She pulled to a stop in front of the waiting crowd. She felt an enormous sense of relief. Her asthma was getting worse lately. She was using her inhaler a lot more than she should. Alighting the bus, she decided to make an appointment with the asthma clinic. Having a plan made her feel slightly better, although she knew that the underlying cause of her anxiety was a potential cut to her personal independent payment. Ron was wearing plenty of layers to keep warm. He had on his vest, a long-sleeved t-shirt with a fleece shirt and a heavy jumper. He struggled to manoeuvre his arms into the thick lining of his overcoat before donning his hat and scarf. His gloves were in his pocket, ready to pull on if needed. At least he would be able to kill two birds with one stone today, he thought to himself. After his appointment, he would go to the library and spend a few hours browsing through the books. A couple of voluntary organisations and the council were providing warm spaces for people to use during the winter months. Some venues even offered hot drinks and biscuits, which was very welcoming indeed. His flat was so cold these days, and he dare not put on the heating. With the rising cost of energy, and now the winter fuel payment had been cut, he was worried how he would manage. The baby had been moving all night, seemingly to kick her overfilled bladder at regular intervals. Now the girls were at school, Sophie could get on with her day. She was glad her appointment was early. She had so much work to do at home, but she needed to keep on top of things. She was worried how they would manage to feed and clothe another little one, especially with the proposed changes to the family allowance. Roger was in a bad mood this morning. He didn't like early starts, and unfortunately, since his MS diagnosis, took out his anger on Jenny. Taking a deep breath, Jenny plastered a smile on her face whilst making Roger comfortable in his wheelchair. Roger was a husband and she loved him dearly, but occasionally the physical and emotional strain of caring for him was too much. It seemed they were caught in a proverbial catch-22 situation. They'd been able to claim for benefits or help while Jenny was working. Once Jenny gave up work to care for Roger, their once comfortable lifestyle was reduced to the bare minimum. Her family were good to her, Mary reflected as her daughter Susan drove her to her appointment. They would make this quick stop, then Mary would be moving into a new home, well, a new place to live. She was unable to stay in the house that she had lived in for over 50 years. Len had carried her over the threshold after they got married. They spent so many happy years together. Raising up their 3 children, the house always seemed to be full of fun and laughter. Len had passed away many years ago, and now having had 2 strokes, it was becoming increasingly difficult for Mary to manage to look after herself. The family was concerned for her safety, as they lived so far away. Reluctantly, she had agreed to sell the house and live in a care home. The equity from the sale would pay for her care for a few years, but then what? She felt aggrieved that both of them had worked so hard to own their own home, and now she was left with nothing. Mohammed, or Mo to his clients, was working a double shift today. He had arranged to attend the surgery in between his scheduled visits. People seemed to arrive in droves and join the waiting line. Which was already snaking around the car park. He hoped it wouldn't take too long to get what he needed. He wouldn't be able to work if he didn't get the proof of his vaccination status, and ironically, he wouldn't be eligible if he didn't work in the care industry. Suddenly the door to the surgery opened with a flourish and the crowd shuffled forwards. One by one they formed an orderly queue. One by one they moved ahead to the vaccination clinic. One by one they removed clothing to expose the deltoid muscle into which they would receive the sharp scratch of the pinprick needle, delivering the contents of the syringe. Each and every one of them were vulnerable people, all doing a small part to stop the spread of disease to to help themselves and others.